there was a pregame speech that Jason Garrett gave to the team, not necessarily known for pregame speeches. Jane, did you hear about this and know what he said to the guys?
So here's the thing about Jason Garrett that is so fascinating to me. I feel like there's a lot of coaches in the league who like you to talk about what they do, how they motivate their players. It typically gets out about, how they encourage them. We don't always hear that from Jason Garrett, but as I've done some sort of digging in the last couple of weeks, because it has seemed like his seat is about as hot as it's ever been. I've always laughed off this notion that it's a hot seat because I've always felt like it's lukewarm based on his relationship with the Jones family and also the way that his players have always so publicly supported him. And one of his former players told me just a few weeks ago, he said, Jane, you guys don't see how accountable he holds us or how tough some of our practices are. And I said, no, I'm actually not familiar with that. That's, if anything, it's what us in the media typically knock him for because we don't hear about it. And Travis Frederick was on the radio this morning talking about that pregame speech, and he says that Jason Garrett essentially has these speeches throughout the week. There's a theme, there's a mantra, and it sort of starts on Wednesday and then it culminates on Saturday. But it was Sean Lee who really came out and said this speech, this one in particular, was one of the best he'd ever heard. So whatever it was that he said, and we'll do some digging when we're in the locker room this week, really got this team, on the right page. And as much as people want to move on from Jason Garrett, I've maintained that the reason why he has continued to work in Dallas is because of the love that this locker room continues to have for Jason. I talked to players both privately and publicly on this and have over the years, and they have always supported that coach.
Is there a number of playoff games, a number of wins that he has to get to keep his job? I don't feel like Jerry Jones is anxious to pull the trigger on Jason Garrett. I feel like he would have done this a long time ago. Now, I know this year's a little different, and it could still end in a disappointing season. If they beat the Eagles, they're going to be headed to the postseason, assuming that they can wrap things up and get home field advantage. What does Jason Garrett have to do to keep his job?
So here's how I would break this down for you, Dan. Ian Rappaport came out with a report yesterday, and I'd heard whispers of it and then later confirmed. The Jones family did, in fact, use back channels this offseason. After that Rams loss, they were absolutely livid. Keep in mind, that's following that Packers divisional loss. So they used back channels to sort of engage the possibility of bringing someone like Sean Payton here. That, of course, didn't work out. They had already announced a few months before that they were going to put Jason Garrett on sort of a prove-it deal. You've got 1 year left in your contract. We're not going to give you an extension, which Jason was none too pleased with. But to his credit, continued to get this team rallied and got them to play. And I had somebody within the organization say to me, he's coaching his tail off. This was ahead of the season. So they were noticing that at camp. Then we've heard, these discussions, and I'd reported that Stephen Jones, within the last few months, has talked to Urban Meyer, and the Cowboys are interested in him. Now, Jerry Jones shot down that report, and they will maintain that they have not been doing these coaching searches. Fine. But I would argue that as mad as they've been with Jason Garrett and as frustrated as they've been with Jason Garrett, he wants him to succeed. The Jones family thinks very highly of Jason Garrett. There was that report a few weeks ago that the Giants would be interested in Jason. I maintained that if Jason were not to get brought back here by Dallas, I believe the Redskins would be in play. Cleveland is where he had a lot of family, so I think Ohio would be interesting, especially the way that he is with young players. He certainly wouldn't be the type of guy that would love as vocal quarterback as Baker Mayfield, but I think the players learn to respect him. Dak Prescott loves Jason Garrett, might I point out to you. And so as I'm listening to Jerry, who's sort of been on this emotional roller coaster because he wants to win so bad, he wants these guys to win, he wants this coach to win, he said something very interesting last night. He said when he was asked about if this win causes him to reassess his thoughts on the future of this team and coaching staff, and he said, that implies I had concluded and had assessed the future, and that's not correct. I had not reached that point. What it does remind me is that the season's not over. He also said, there's nothing I'd like more than to ride his coattail into a fairy tale here. A couple weeks ago, it was Jerry Jones who, after blasting Jason and the coaching staff after the loss to the Patriots, it was after that Bills loss came out and said that adversity is the opportunity to write a hell of a comeback story. And then he says to us reporters, you guys believe in redemption. I'm a redemption man. So I've been sort of joking on my podcast that we do on the Herd, the Boys and Girl podcast. I said, prepare yourselves for the possibility. I believe there is a scenario, as crazy as it sounds to people, I believe this, that if Jerry can't go out there and land the Sean Paytons of the world, and he's got to go with an unproven NFL guy or, one of these younger college coaches, the Matt Rules of the world, the Lincoln Rileys, and Jason starts creating buzz amongst some of these other NFC East teams, and there's a possibility they could lose him, prepare yourselves for the possibility that if they go and they win the divisional game and it looks like he lifted this team up, I think he could give Jerry the sort of edge and the hope and the idea that, maybe we'll bring Jason back. I'm just saying prepare for the possibility.
I'm on board. I was saying to Brockman earlier, I feel like if he wins a playoff game that he's going to be around, and you're inside, Jerry wants nothing more than for Jason to be successful there. They're comfortable there. They have a management structure that, in Jerry's mind, has worked for them for quite some time, and Jason, for the most part, seems to be comfortable with that.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download The Rich Eisen Show app.